And welcome to another episode of Ardent Cinema, the #1 podcast for book club style discussion of all things movies. This is a weekly podcast, and we encourage you to follow along as we take a deep dive into each movie's plot, overall themes, what we thought of the acting and directing, our feelings on the film, and more. At the end of each episode, we will announce the movie for next week, so make sure to listen to the end. I am your simple host, Sean. Sean. I did that on purpose.
Clip that. Your simple host, Sean.
Sean. God damn it.
Oh man. Go on.
No, that was a joke. Yeah. Go.
Oh.
You're up, buddy.
That was amazing. I didn't realize you were gonna do that.
Yep.
God damn it.
It was a pop, and I got it.
Oh boy. I am your holy host, Daniel.
Welcome to the show. Soy Alejandro de España. No hablo español. This week, we hope you watch along with us for the Banshees of Inisherin, available on HBO Max and Blu-ray.
Colm's sonny Larry. Didn't you and he used to be the best of friends?
Who says we're not?
Sit somewhere else.
If I've done something to you, just tell me what I've done to you.
When you didn't do anything to me. I just don't like you no more.
2 hours you spent talking to me about the things you found in your little donkey shite that day.
Well, it wasn't me little donkey shite, it was me pony shite, which shows how much you were listening.
Each time you bother me from this day on, I'll take those shears and I'll take one of my fingers off with them and I'll give that finger to you until I have no fingers left.
We'll call it the start.
Written and directed by Martin McDonough, starring Colin Farrell as Padraic, Brendan Gleeson as Colm Doherty, Kerry Condon as Siobhan, and Barry Keoghan as Dominic Kearney. On the beautiful island of Inisherin, located off the coast of Ireland, Padraic is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as he goes to call on his best friend Colm for their daily drink. Sadly, over the course of the morning, he learns of the troubling revelation that Colm just doesn't like him anymore. Is Colm depressed? Have they been rowing?
We haven't been rowing? I don't think we've been rowing.
Sounds like you've been rowing.
It does sound like we've been rowing. I didn't think we were rowing.
Well, you are rowing. Well, you are rowing. He's sitting outside in his own like I watch him call.
It does look like we're rowing.
Grab a pint and settle in for the folk tale unlike any other. What do you think, Danny boy?
Definitely a very unique film in the sense where the plot is so simple. Like probably, I don't know, the simplest plot I've ever seen in a film, I think. But that, I think, is kind of what makes it unique. Just kind of seeing this story unfold in a culture that is so unlike what I've lived in my life. So I thought that was really interesting to see. It's a very grounded film. Not a lot is really going on, but it just had this charm to it. So overall, I really liked it.
It's almost like a TV plot. You know, they have something simple, then you just explore it to its maximum benefit. Well, only it's over 2 hours.
Right.
You know? What do you think, Sean?
Absolutely loved it. This film is engrossing. The dialogue is just out of this world.
Yeah.
It's definitely a case where you want to really pay attention to everything that's going on, because even though the plot is very simple, there's a lot of little jokes and little sides that are a lot of character moments and character beats that are laid in throughout the film in the dialogue. Like the dialogue like really carries this film, I think. So yeah, overall, absolutely enjoyed it. What about you, Alejandro?
I loved it. I love all the weird idiosyncrasies of our gang of islanders and their weird grudges and dramas. It works as a dark comedy and as a fairy tale warning against the pitfalls of stubbornness. The first thing that caught my attention was the music. How'd you guys like that?
I thought it was expertly crafted. I read somewhere about the music that the director specifically did not want any specifically Irish tunes. Historical Irish tunes. So
yeah, it's very surprising when it comes up.
Yeah, it's more what I would hear maybe in a fantasy setting.
Yeah.
So it kind of lent to that magical charm of the film.
I like that it doesn't accurately represent the feel of the island.
Right.
So it does a good job of setting you up to get the rug pulled out from under you. Padraic, you know, like I said, starts off super happy, going to call on his friend with this wonderful, powerful music going on. And I don't think he ever rises to that level of energy again. It's a downfall from there.
I'm curious. There weren't any like Irish elements in the music at all. Like even in Colm's like song that he was developing, there weren't any Irish instruments or Irish.
Well, the songs themselves in the film that Colm is playing, because he's a violin player, that is keeping with the times, right? That's like those little tunes. But I'm talking purely the soundtrack of the film.
Oh, okay, got it.
Right, that specific tune was just to serve the purpose of the story, versus the actual soundtrack, which was purposely done more in a whimsical nature.
Yeah, there's not a lot of variance in it in terms of like the clips that they use, because it's one, I'd say, pretty consistent theme throughout that they keep coming back to. It reminds me a lot of In Bruges, the last film we saw from this director, and how they use a very consistent theme there. And, I thought it really elevated the film. And here, I think it elevates the film greatly because it's a much more, I mean, you guys were saying a little bit whimsical. I felt a little more melancholy from hearing the theme.
Definitely a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, a little melancholic. That coupled with, especially like Colin Farrell's acting, where he's always playing like kind of in this film, like kind of dour, little like sad sack, little mopey, right? So that I think the music really elevated that feeling of melancholy, of like sadness from his perspective.
Well, maybe I'm not a happy lad, so maybe this is the new me.
So to me, the music really just elevated kind of how almost absurd and fairy tale this movie is in its story.
I agree.
I think that's really what it did. It helped like transport me out of my reality completely, because it just didn't, in a way, it's dealing with real themes, but almost in an unrealistic way.
It goes back to In Bruges and the music they use. It's to set it up as this otherworldly presence. I keep saying fairy tale. It feels like a fairy tale to me, and this one as well.
Absolutely.
I love that the drama is based off this ridiculously simple premise of a friend not wanting to be friends anymore.
And there's just such a ridiculousness to how they go about it, And first off,
well, that's the nature of stubbornness, and I think that's the whole point, right?
Yes.
Stubbornness taken to its ultimate form.
First, it's just crazy to think that Colm would not want to be friends anymore with Padraic, because there's 25 people on this island. So that in itself is already the beginning of the absurdity, right? You would think like, okay, you just don't want to have anything to do with this guy for no reason, just like who else?
And there's no half measures,
right?
Not like I don't want to drink every morning. I want to write my music in the morning.
Yeah, maybe a few times a week we can hang out or something, But I want to put more focus on what I want to do. No, it's like, no, you're just dull, and I don't want to see you anymore. It's so. Like, there's no middle ground to it, It's just
extreme.
Exactly. It's just such an extreme behavior.
And I think that's partly the reason Siobhan leaves later on in the movie. Yes, she's lonely and there's not much of a future there, but ultimately it was still a hard decision to leave her friends and her brother, who she loves dearly. But seeing Colm walk down the road fingerless was the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, this is not a place to live. I need to let go.
I mean, she recognizes the madness for what it is, right? Like, more so than even Padraic, I would say. Like, Padraic is kind of in a stupor in a lot of this film. Like, he's more blindsided by Colm not liking him as much as like the fingers being cut off and thrown at his door, And
in his own way, he's just as stubborn. So of course he can't see it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she mentions, I gotta escape this madness or else it's gonna overtake me. Like, she just couldn't handle it, and good for her. Just other than her, everyone else has a very sad, sort of tragic ending almost.
So the island kind of sets itself up as a testing ground, almost like another purgatory where the people who can't change are the ones who can't leave.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a fast rule. Obviously, this is supposed to be a real place. So I think the cop leaves the island at one point. But generally, the only person who can escape the island is the one who's able to make the change in themselves and let go of the stubbornness.
Yeah. And additionally, it feels more so in this film than in Bruges. It feels like almost there's like an otherworldly force at play here too.
Yeah.
Whereas in Bruges, it's just kind of dealing with everyone within the same system. Whereas here in Banshees of Inisherin, you have the old woman that's constantly witnessing events like a banshee, basically.
Yeah.
Foretelling future terror and future tragedy in these families, right? So it's, while she doesn't seem to play a part in how it transpires, she's a warning towards it, and it feels much more overt, maybe on the director's side of showcasing that otherworldly force than I would say in Bruges.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's a more spiritual nature to this.
Well, it's more in the
film.
forefront.
Yeah, definitely more in the forefront. It was interesting bringing in, having this old witch lady in this film to kind of like almost connect you to the old world, in the old world ways of thinking too, which
they're not too far removed from. They live very simply.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. So they're still very much in belief of those kind of things in this film.
I looked up what a banshee was, and it's supposedly an omen of death. So even without the fantasy element, she is literally a banshee.
Yeah, it's a female ghoul that portends like future tragedy in the family, usually death. Yeah.
Yeah. She walks around saying 2 people are gonna die. I hope it's not one of you.
I swear this woman got paler and paler as the film went on. I don't know if maybe it was just me reading into it, but it really felt like in the beginning she was just normal looking kind of older woman when she was being with Siobhan in the house. And then as we went on and on and on, she looked paler, a little more gangly, a little more frail almost. Like, she really leaned into it.
There were 2 interesting moments with her. One where Siobhan is looking across a lake and she sees the old lady across. Siobhan waves and the old lady beckons her into the lake.
Yeah, that was creepy.
And then we find out that Dominic was right behind her, who later dies. So she was, in a way, beckoning Dominic into the lake. And she's also there where there's another point of foreshadowing with Dominic's father in the post office at one point. The old post office lady is asking for news, and the cop says,
"Fella killed himself, or Ross Muckway. Walked into a lake for himself. 29 and nothing wrong with him. The fool."
And then, of course, his son is going to end up in the same situation. And the banshee is sitting in the corner in the post office.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has a hand in that stuff in some way because she tells the officer that his son has drowned, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but she actually uses the same pole hook that Dominic fashioned in the beginning of the film.
Look at this I found. A stick with a hook. What would you use it for, I wonder? To hook things that are length of a stick away?
Did he ever give that to her? Who knows? Somehow she has his tool, yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting because Colm mentions about midway through the film, maybe after, when he and Padraic have the like falling out in the house when Padraic confronts him and he's all like huffing and puffing. And he says the reason why he made the song to begin with, and one of the reasons that he's talking about these banshees are, they're not really doing anything anymore. Like they're just kind of watching events as they transpire, right? And they're not getting involved in any way, shape, or form. And for him, that felt like
she's an omen, not the cause.
Yeah, and for him, he felt like, well, at the very least, it's a sad state of affairs that no one's getting involved in anything anymore, right? Like that's the kind of world he doesn't really want to live in, right? And that kind of speaks to his mental state at the time.
Which is ironic because he's the one detaching from the world in the hopes of living forever. He's annoyed at one point. I don't think God cares for donkeys, and that's the problem. It's like,
yeah,
you don't care for donkeys. You don't care about your best friend, That's honestly when the donkey died and he felt terrible about it because it choked on one of his fingers.
Yeah,
that should have been the point that knocked him out of his craziness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he feels terrible about it, but doesn't even realize that it's not only his fault, but all the problems around him currently are transpiring because of his stubbornness.
Right.
I mean, it's the ultimate case of what's the phrase? Tear off your nose to spite your face.
Cut off your nose to spite the face.
Yeah, everything he's doing is for the worse in his life and everyone's around him, and he's literally chopping off his fingers as a musician, and this is supposedly to make a point or
it's supposed to be for his benefit, but I mean, the whole point in the beginning was because he wants to live forever through his music.
Mm-hmm.
So why are you going to risk? I mean, why are you going to lose that just because one guy just won't stop leaving you alone? It just doesn't make any sense. It's just part of the absurdity of what's going on.
I mean, they kind of hint at it with his discussions with the priest. where the priest asks him, has the despair come back?
Mm-hmm.
So the priest
Well, I don't
said that
think-
in a knowing way.
I don't think he said that it come back. He said
That's what I thought he said.
Yeah, yeah, he did for sure.
I thought he just went like, and what of the despair, like kind of thing, like how are you in the despair department?
And how's the despair?
Not so much of it of late, thanks be.
Oh, I didn't think that was a question he asked everybody. It seemed like it was an ongoing problem with him.
Well,
Yeah,
I think
they
he
hit him.
asked him because Colm told him about the despair.
No, I don't think he had mentioned it.
I didn't get that impression.
I didn't get that impression either. To
Really?
be honest. Yeah, because Colin was talking about, I think, the donkey, and then he was confessing about killing the donkey, and then he had mentioned, the priest had mentioned, oh, is the despair back, or has it come back? Something to that effect.
The donkey, the
Or
donkey was
the goat. Excuse me. Yeah. Or is it
The miniature donkey.
no, it is the donkey, but I'm saying
He brings up the despair both times
that's-
he goes to the church.
Oh, I
Yes.
see.
Both times.
Oh, is it
Okay.
both?
Well, the
Yeah,
first
maybe it's
time, the first time was before the whole donkey situation, right? The first time was when when Colm and Padraic both had their little falling out.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go to church, and then
It could be because Padraic did talk to him right before.
Right.
But it wasn't the impression I got, but it definitely could be.
he whispers to him, and you don't know exactly what he says. So that's why I was assuming.
But Colm's reaction is knowing. It's not like, oh, why are you asking me that? He just went, oh, it's good now.
Yeah, he's not defensive about it. He's just very open, you know. Plus, lending to the quaint nature of their lives, right? I'd imagine the priest and him have probably known each other for quite some time. So I imagine this is an ongoing thing that the priest has noticed, right? If they've, Colm is not a young guy, right? So unless he moved to the island, that I'd imagine he's probably from there, same as the priest. It's probably something that has been known for a long time.
Their friendship is interesting considering the age difference, don't you think?
Who?
Colm and
Colm,
Padraic.
I mean, that's just the circumstance, right? It's just the fact of the matter that there's just not that many people on this island to begin with, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine they became friends, in adulthood, and they probably met at the pub.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, it's probably more out of convenience than anything else. Like, he's one of the only guys that's drinking there. I mean, how many people are in that pub? A couple dozen
At 2 p.m.
most.
no less.
Yeah.
Yeah, at 2 p.m. Not many.
Yeah, Colm probably moved to the island because one of the things he's looking for is peace, and there's probably now he's looking for peace from Padraic, but it seems like he probably moved to the island for peace. Maybe he has a tragic backstory.
And you could see that he's a little more worldly. I mean, when you see the
You're right, 100%.
items in his house, he has things not from the island, like things maybe he's collected
Masks, marionettes.
in his travels.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
things.
He also knows a lot of music students from the local university on the mainland. So
Right.
yeah, he's gone around a lot for sure.
I want to talk about his quest for immortality. It's tragic that that's what he's going for, because you think somebody as smart as him would understand that it's a fantasy. And I think at some level he knows, because he does mention, oh, maybe I'm just scared of death. And that's really what it is, right? I mean, he uses Beethoven as an example and then can't even name the century he lived in. It's an abstract idea of trying to live forever.
Right.
The things that matter, the people who are going to remember you for you, are the people you're kind to, your friends and family, the people in your life, the people in your community. The people who know Beethoven know a name, and an idea of somebody who made this music. They don't know Beethoven.
Yeah,
And I think on some level he knows that.
yeah, it's crazy because he even mentions something like that where it's like, all right, well, what happens in 50 years once the people who know your sister, talking to Padraic, once they know your sister are dead, and she's just gone.
And my sister, she's nice. I'll remember her forever. I'll remember her.
And who else will? Remember, Siobhan. No one will.
Right. So even he understands that idea that you were just mentioning, but he has a much more cynical take on it, where he's like, who cares if all these like country bumpkins know me, remember me well
yeah,
past
who
my
cares
age.
that Siobhan's nice?
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't really care about like the small niceties in life. He wants it seems like a more grander ambition,
Yeah.
right? He wants worldwide recognition. And for him, it's through his music. But,
And then one, what are the odds of getting that? And two, that's not the part of you that really means anything.
yeah, and it feels spurred on as a result of like some internal feeling he had, as
Yeah.
opposed to a lifelong quest.
Exactly.
Like I never got the sense that this was something that he was driven towards his whole life. It seemed much more recent.
Yeah, it's out of insecurity or fear. If he was always driven for greatness, he wouldn't have moved to Inisherin.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, and
Yeah.
these ways of thinking for him came definitely at a later time. I mean, just it spurred on him randomly.
Yeah.
You know, from one day to the next, pretty much, he just had this realization, and he's trying to act on it the best way he knows how, which made me feel like I felt that Colm definitely wasn't as smart as he seems to me.
Well, yeah. In comparison, he's the smart one.
Exactly. It's kind of the big fish in a little pond situation.
Yeah.
He's the smartest man on the island. Hell, he's not even the smartest human being on the island.
Yeah,
'cause
Siobhan is
smarter than
smarter.
him as
Yeah.
she corrects him on Mozart's correct century.
Yeah.
Right. It kind of shows you like, oh man, like that really brought him down a peg. You can really tell at that moment.
Another moment that should have snapped him out of it. Like,
Yeah.
of course.
His self-perception's interesting.
Absolutely.
Because on one hand, he has a inflated ego about himself. You know, he feels like he's the smartest person in the room, any room he goes into. But at the same time, how do I put this? He wants to cut himself down to show that I am losing more from these fingers than you are in your life, if that makes sense. Like he's like the weight of his fingers weighs more than like anything that anyone there has done. You get what I mean? Like
I took it as this is how much better I am, that when I say something, I mean it. I'm willing to destroy my life for my convictions.
That too. Yeah, it's a weird dichotomy. He's like, I am so great in this essence.
Yeah.
But I'm also willing at the drop of a hat, the drop of a conversation, to just start getting rid of that, start eliminating that. It's weird because again, if he's going towards immortality, the things he's doing right now are leading towards death, like much closer to death. If he had just lived his life as is.
Yeah, well, isn't that the irony? You live more by being in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Like he was not in the moment. He was ignoring everybody. I mean, there was one part where he's playing the violin towards the end, and his nub is just squirting blood everywhere.
These
all
students
over.
are just like too afraid to say anything.
I swear some of the blood was squirting on them too, like on their face, and they're like, "Oh God!" And they just keep playing it.
You know, it feels to me like a part of him almost wanted this conflict. Would that be strange to say? Like,
no, not at all.
Explain it.
Like he almost wanted, like he felt like he was just too settled in this life and nothing was happening, and he like at first it was like he was focusing on the music, but if you're so willing to be throwing your fingers at someone's door and causing all of this mayhem, I feel like a part of him was kind of enjoying that. You know, I don't know. Like I kept getting kind of small feelings of that.
Yeah, I see where you're getting at.
It's interesting.
I agree with part of it insofar as I think it helps spurred him on to finish his quote unquote masterpiece. That whereas I don't think he would have done that if he hadn't gone to those extremes. So I think maybe he recognized that through his relationship with Padraic, through his relationships with the other people, he wasn't moving forward enough in his ventures. So, you know, he had to take a quote unquote drastic step.
He was looking for a change in this. He was looking for the conflict to push himself.
It
Very
almost
possible.
seemed like it, yeah. Because
It's so dumb because he just has to write a couple hours in the morning.
But everything is so dumb
Yes.
about what he's doing. So the answers have to be dumb.
It's
right?
not like he's slaving over a violin for 16 hours a day. You know, what he needed to do was not that amazing.
Yeah,
The pieces that he's writing are like actually so freaking simple. You know, talking as a musician, like you know, you can write those pieces in not very long. You know,
And it doesn't take him long.
Yeah, and it doesn't. Like you really an hour a day, maybe working on it. You still can go to the pub for an hour or two.
It's amazing.
And be fine. He literally has nothing else to do. Does this guy even work?
No,
Doesn't
no,
even
he's at
work.
his house, yeah.
He has 24 hours in the day to do whatever the heck he wants, and he chooses to start this conflict with Padraic, and chooses to just really unsettle the entire village, and he knows it. He's not a fool, you know. So, with that being said, do you guys think he's just mentally unwell?
In terms of like a diagnosable thing, no.
Well, you know, I mean,
I think he's had some kind of mental break. Yeah.
right.
No, it's obviously not normal behavior. Yeah, he's not well right now. Not that I think he's a mentally unwell person.
The despair, you'd say.
How's the despair these days? Yeah, the despair, exactly.
There's so many layers to Colm's journey here, you know, whether it's like the mental health aspect, whether it's like the artistry aspect, whether it's just like the interpersonal relationship stuff.
Yeah.
Like around the main cast, he is nothing but cold and distant to. But anytime we see a voyeuristic shot of him talking with like music students from the mainland, for example, he's the most happy you will ever see him. Like pretty much anyone from the mainland he can't stand seemingly anymore, and he's just always dour around them. But the moment he's talking with someone outside of the island, he's just alive. He's very effusive.
Well, that also comes to a little bit of hypocrisy on his part.
Sure.
Where the reason he's doing this is supposedly because Padraic's boring, and then he's talking to
The police officer, right?
Dominic's father, the police officer,
Yeah.
exactly. And that was actually I think the point where I lost any kind of sympathy for him, because here he is being chummy with the guy who beat up Padraic, beats on his kid, diddles his kid, all around asshole.
Yeah.
and
isn't much smarter on top of that.
and that's
Probably a
the
dullard,
main
really.
thing. Yeah, he's just as predictable and oblivious as anybody else on the island.
Right.
So it's just frustrating. It's hard to have sympathy for that guy.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to have sympathy and to really just understand him, understand his inner thoughts when it comes to just not wanting to be friends with Pork anymore. So I understand I understand Pork's anger, you know, and frustration at Colm. If I was Pork, honestly, I would kind of be the same way. As a matter of fact, I would go up to Colm and say, hey, you know what? Chop off all your fingers.
Would you not want him to have to do the one finger to see if he was bluffing, like? That's what I'd have him do. I'd have him do the one finger to see if he was bluffing.
Because you're the one being an idiot. You want to do it based on stupidity, just because you don't want to see me. We live on the same island of 20 people. We go to the same bar. You want me to just not look at you?
But that's being stubborn too.
Well,
You're gonna let him hurt himself because your feelings got hurt, or
unless
because
I
he's
was
being
sure
ridiculous?
that he really is going through mental instability.
Well, obviously he is.
Well,
What
fine.
they even pointed out, you know, Padraic does say to his sister, "Oh, is he depressed? Maybe he's depressed."
It's him, Padraic. Maybe he's just depressed.
Well,
Right,
it's
and
the,
then
it's
he
the
starts to
obvious
get-
conclusion, right?
Right, and he starts to have some sympathy for him, but as Colm, you know, becomes more extreme in his actions, then all that sympathy is gone from there.
Oh, maybe I'm being a little stubborn myself, you know, which is in theme to this movie. But I guess, yeah, if in his shoes, I recognize that there was, you know, mental instability and depression, then I guess for his sake, I'd say, okay, then I gotta just let that go, you know, or move on somehow. Oh, leave the island or something.
At the end of the day, all he's asking for is to be left alone. So that's the right thing to do. Whether he's being ridiculous about it, which he is,
Yes.
and he's being masochistic, which he is, you still have to. I think the right thing to do would still be leave him alone.
Yeah. Even though, I mean, that's just so difficult, especially depending if you've been friends for so long. Like, imagine me and you, and we live in this island of 20 people. All of a sudden, you were like, leave me the heck alone. That would just be a really uncomfortable life for me. Having to deal with you every single day with that.
Yeah, you're like walking past my house on the way to
Exactly. I don't know. Talk about energy draining and anxiety inducing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would tell, you know, I would at least tell Colm, hey, well, then leave the island, bro. You know, go somewhere else.
Wait, why are you talking to me? That's it. Rip it off my face.
No.
Oh my god.
Can we talk about Dominic a little bit?
Sure.
What'd you guys think about him? Pretty tragic figure, huh?
I mean, yeah.
The most tragic, I would say.
You know, a very ignorant child. I mean, not much education. Just gets beaten by his father.
Yeah.
All the time. Though he does have some inklings of culture and knowledge, right?
You know, it's funny because I think you used the correct word, which is ignorant. He's not stupid.
Yes. He's ignorant, but he is smart in some ways. Like, for example, I feel like there's a little tug of war between Padraic and him in terms of who's like the dumber one of the island.
Definitely.
Dominic's the dim one on the island, isn't he?
He is, aye. By miles.
Hang on. By miles, and then who's the next dimmest?
Well, I don't like to judge people in those terms now, do I?
In what terms?
In order their dimness.
Right.
Who's the nicer of the two?
Who's the nicer? And I think there's one part where, you know,
I thought there were a few parts.
There's a few parts, but there's one part in particular that I'm remembering right now where Dominic kind of wins the round. Is when they're at dinner and he says something to Siobhan, and then Siobhan like responds back and he says touche. and Pork's like, touche, what's that?
It's a French word.
He's like, it's a French word.
Chez, touche, it's from the French.
Yeah, and that's part of the tragedy of him. He's written off as the village moron, and really he's a victim. You know, he's a victim of developmental. What would you say? What's the word? You're the education guy. Yeah, exactly. Developmental impairment. He's gone through probably no schooling. His dad beats him. His dad molested him. He's ostracized. He's like on the street sometimes trying to get out of his home. Like, yeah, okay, he's energetic and he's a loudmouth. He says the wrong things but of course, that doesn't mean he's the village idiot. And it's so, you know, it's sad that he's ostracized in that way.
And you know what's really sad? He's actually like the only kid on this island, which is kind of strange if you think about it. So,
not a thriving population.
No. So it just feels like generations can't come from this island, right? This has to be like a new-ish kind of thing.
Well, I feel like it's the dying of, not the new.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like we see a lot of people moving there. We see like maybe one person arrive on boat to the island. But other than that...
well, no, we see a few people arriving, but just to visit, right?
Or trade or whatever.
Yeah, like the
but like actually stay there.
The musicians and but no, not to actually stay.
Yeah,
no, they don't even have an inn, do they? What do they have? From the whole movie, we see what? We see the bar, and we see like 3 houses maybe.
And the priest.
And the church.
The priest, I don't know if he even lives on the island. Oh, no, he does, but he travels. He doesn't just work on the island.
Yeah, we see him come into the island on
yes.
boat. Yeah.
That's exactly what I noticed. And I also noticed that he's immediately chummy with the douchebag cop. That's the first person he talks to, and they're very good friends. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering, is Martin trying to show a correlation maybe between kid diddling cops and Catholic priests?
Huh. I think that's a little bit of a stretch.
I mean, I guess maybe, I don't know.
Or maybe the power of that the church has, kind of thing.
Here's another thing. When the priest is asked early on in the movie if he has impure thoughts about men, don't you think he doth protest it way too much?
Do you have impure thoughts about men, Father?
I do not have impure thoughts about men. And how dare you say that about a man of the cloth?
Get out of my confessional right now, so you can. And I'm not forgiving you any of these things until the next time, so I'm not. You will be pure fucked. Yes, you will be pure fucked.
The outburst he had?
Oh, yeah, he was more offended by that than anything else.
Well, I mean, it is an offensive thing, you know. I mean, a man of the cloth, you know, you don't ask a man of the cloth if you have impure thoughts, especially especially when you're in the booth. You're supposed to give your confession to him, not the other way around.
It felt like he was guilty to me, like he felt guilty.
I didn't feel that. I feel like I'd be offended as well, you know, like, I don't know.
Okay.
In my, you know, I don't know. I'm not a priest. I don't know that life. But like a man who's dedicated himself to God and he's in his own house, you know, in the house of God and doing his duty, taking confessions from the people, and suddenly he's getting like interrogated like that, or like.
I mean, it was a little bit of sass.
Yeah.
He asked the guy, "Do you have impure thoughts about men?" Are you freaking kidding me? Or whatever he says. Are you feckin' kidding me? Do you have impure thoughts about men, Father? What? Get out of this church!
Well, because there's a certain like respect that you learn in the Catholic churches.
Sure. It just fit for me. That I don't know. I thought maybe that was a hint.
But like with my history of being part of a Catholic church for a while, like that just feels, I don't know, sacrilege to do.
Well, so I guess what I would say is I think it's a little bit open to interpretation.
Definitely.
I mean, there is a reason. There's probably a reason the cop met with the priest and they showcase that. They like take some time to actually show that happening. So yeah. I guess there's some hints there.
You know, yeah, I can definitely see the connection. It's definitely a possibility. I'm not going to rule it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Going back to Dominic, another reason he's very tragic is because while he is ignorant, he is a lot more in tune with feelings and how people are feeling, and like being able to interpret how people are acting a lot better than most people on the island, maybe except Siobhan.
Yeah, you can see why he's had to learn how to be a little bit wise to that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are many times where, you know, he reads Padraic like a book saying, "Oh, you're thinking about Colm again, right?" Like, You know, even if Padraic's just sitting there having a drink, he's like, "Oh, you're thinking about it again, huh?" It's like, yeah. Or, you know, there's a little bit of self-doubt in this, self-loathing, but when he asks Siobhan out towards the end, you know, he is kind of knowing how she feels about him, even though he does want to, you know, take his chance anyways. He recognizes, I know how she feels about me.
But yeah, what I was wanting to ask you was, you probably wouldn't ever want to fall in love with a boy like me, would you?
No, Dominic, I don't think so, love.
Oh, yeah, no. I was thinking no. Just thought I'd ask in the off chance. You know, like, faint heart and that. Oh, there goes that dream.
Considering everything that had just happened to him and then the rejection, do you think he walked into the lake or was it an accident?
Well, the last time we do see him is walking alongside the lake and he says, "I gotta go do something over there," which in part is just him trying to get out from talking with her anymore. But I mean, the Banshee is there, across the way, as you had mentioned earlier. So again, you know, it kind of speaks to what Colm said about the Banshees, how they're just watching, and he almost wishes they would do a little bit more than that. So I get the sense maybe the Banshee had a little bit more of a role to play there that maybe we're being led on to.
Like to ease suffering.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, a little bit. That's a good way to put it, actually, because, you know, at that point he's probably, other than Colm, probably the most suffered character.
You know, that reminds me a little bit of Wings of Desire.
Okay.
It's like the opposite, though. You know, like they're trying to just comfort in a positive light. And
Grim Reaper versus the angel.
Exactly. Yeah. So the Grim Reaper here, the Banshee is just easing pain through death.
Yeah, instead of putting a comforting hand on the shoulder, she puts a comforting hook over the neck to yank him into the lake or something. Yeah, I think she has more to play there than
because it's hard to think that he would really accidentally drown in that lake. You know, it's not like there's any.
It's hard to believe. Yeah,
there's no heavy currents in that lake or anything like that. Nothing really that dangerous.
I say he walked in, but I want to ask you, can you explain a little bit more what you mean by had a hands in it? Are you saying she has emotional power? She pushed him? What do you mean?
Almost like she's not only a portend of like tragedy to come.
Yeah,
but it's almost like she emanates not hatred, but kind of like negative emotions. Like a lot of times when there's something negative happening, she's right there.
Right.
We don't often see her in a situation where characters are laughing or that they're joyful or just, you know, having a drink next to each other. Like, I don't think we ever see her at the pub, for example.
Okay. That's an interesting interpretation. Go ahead.
But Banshees just are known in that history, that lore, to just be the ones that warn of those things.
Warn or even as a sign.
As a sign, but they're not really known to push someone towards death.
That's interesting, though.
Normally not, but again, I'm thinking back to Colm's conversation with Padraic, where he does kind of mention something about them being more active.
Well, to be fair, also she does call him into the lake. So there is that, right? She actually is physically like waving
enticing
him over.
Misery, maybe. Yeah.
So it's like a banshee gone rogue.
I don't want to spend too much time on it, but there's a little obvious, not symbolism, but there's a connection between the conflict that's going on the island and the civil war going across the shore.
Yes. A little bit of a parallel of, you know, a civil war between a nation and a civil war between friendships.
Mm-hmm. Right? And I wish I knew more about the history, because it's implied, I guess, that it's also caused by stubbornness. I don't know. I wish I knew more about that, but I thought that was an interesting comparison.
It's a funny thought that someone brings up in the film where they're asking, well, why are they fighting even to begin with? Who knows?
Right.
Nobody actually really knows like the impetus of this war or why they're still fighting. It's just something that's happening in the background that you see every once in a while.
And we usually hear cannon fire after something dramatic had just happened in their personal relationships.
Right. Mm-hmm. If for nothing else, I thought it really did add to just the sense of impending doom, or just to the conflict. You just hear cannon fire to the side. You know,
no, I agree completely.
It's the only way to justify cannon fire while people are having an argument, right? You can't just put that sound effect down. But it was really strategically done, having it be like right off the shore during this Civil War.
It worked like the cannons that set off the avalanches in force majeure,
Right.
as a way to amp tension.
Exactly. And also the way the time that this film is set, it's actually set 2 months right before the war actually ends.
Oh.
Which I thought was kind of interesting, which is also kind of nearing the ending of the conflict between their friendship.
So since we're on that, I am of the opinion that at the end of the movie that Padraic is finally able to let go. Why? Because Colm finally acknowledges his niceness, thanking him for looking after the dog, shaking his hand. It's an actual acknowledgement and a goodbye. What do you guys think about that? How did you feel that turns out?
I thought it was less amicable than that, because the way that they looked at each other was kind of almost in disgust. I mean, Padraic can barely stand the sight of Colm at that point. Additionally, you have Colm's burned down house right behind them, and you see the Banshee sitting in front of the burned out house, watching them.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's almost like this negative presence is still there, still seeing what's happening. So like to me, it felt like she's watching over a death, but in this case, a death of their friendship, a death of this like amicableness between them, and they're gonna go their separate ways.
Oh, I completely agree. That's what I meant, actually. Not that they're going to become friends, but that they're finally going to leave each other alone.
Right. I guess I read it as more negative than positive.
Gotcha.
You know, Padraic didn't want this at all, but he's just kind of forced into it, and now he feels the same kind of hate that I think Colm has built over time of Padraic.
So maybe he did do the right thing in acknowledging him, but it's too late.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was the point in time that kind of also woke Colm up a little bit to what he had done. I think also he realized at that point that he was wrong, and he was really looking at all the wrong that has happened because of him.
Yeah.
Indirectly.
Sitting in the ashes of his house, I guess it finally like dawns on him.
Exactly. That it wasn't worth any of it. But yeah, now it's too late, and who knows what Padraic's going to do. Maybe he'll leave him alone. Maybe he'll set his next house on fire. I don't know.
He's just going to follow him along. Every time he rebuilds, it's just like, I'm coming to get you.
Well, it depends. I mean, I don't know what Colm's going to do. If I was Colm, I would definitely leave the island at that point. But, he's still stubborn, so.
He's as stuck there as Padraic is. Like, he doesn't. About, like, the closest he gets to leaving the island is him at that beach. That's about as far, like, away from the island as he's probably willing to get at this point. As we talked about before, he seems well traveled. Probably not anymore. I mean,
that's his last stop, he feels.
Yeah, as much I do think they're gonna leave each other alone, but I also agree that they are holding on to some level of stubbornness because Padraic's not gonna leave the island, and I agree. I don't think Colm is either.
Yeah,
I mean, wishful thinking. I would love it if Padraic went back to Siobhan. Like went to where Siobhan moved to, because she sends him a letter saying, "Hey, look, there's an extra bed here. I want you to come back."
Yeah, he can actually have a life.
So that'd be a nice ending.
I think it's possible. I don't think it's impossible.
And I also want to say once again, Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. What an amazing pair, those two.
Love them.
They work so well together.
Yeah.
In Bruges and in this film, and if there's any other ones that they did together, I want to watch it. As a matter of fact, little did you know about them, they agreed to be in the film 7 years before it was greenlit. Can you imagine that?
Wow. Nice. I've seen that happen in other movies, and it's you gotta have a tight friendship there.
That's gotta be a love for.
And there's no contract that can say that, so that's a handshake agreement.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a love for the writer and director, and it's a love for their co-actor.
Yeah,
as well. So I thought that was really beautiful.
Colin Farrell was the MVP for me. I love the scene where he's riding with Colm in the carriage. He gets picked up after getting punched in the eye. And you can just see the absolute despair and sadness on him. Like, he's so good at showing pain. Absolutely. I love that about him.
Just in the silence, Just in the subtle movements of his face and his eyebrows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He impressed me just as much as in Bruges. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him now.
Cool.
It took a while. It took a while. For those that don't know, I just for some reason I did not like Colin Farrell.
Well, he has a lot of crap movies, so I don't blame you.
Yeah,
actually.
so I saw a lot of bad like duds, and I just didn't like his face. I don't know what it was. Something, sometimes I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but sometimes you look at an actor, you're just kind of like, I don't like seeing you on screen. I don't know. Every time like it says starring you, I just turn away. But finally, after seeing In Bruges and Banshees of Inisherin and a couple of other ones I can't remember right now.
You should see Seven Psychopaths, another Martin McDonagh movie with Colin Farrell. Yeah, it's great.
Definitely, I'll see it.
And Martin McDonagh's brother is also a director and did a movie with Brendan Gleeson. It's apparently really good. It's more of an indie movie, but I want to check it out.
I also go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I also wanted to add, because we didn't really talk that much about it, but I mean, just the set location was gorgeous, right? Because like the movie opens up with this fairy tale land looking place that is a setting you really don't see in films.
How can a fairy tale town not be somebody's fucking thing? How can all those canals and bridges and cobble streets and those churches and all that beautiful fucking fairy tale stuff, how can that not be somebody's fucking thing, eh?
Yeah, just incredibly dramatic. Place the camera anywhere, you're going to get a beautiful shot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And actually the bar, which is called the J.J. Divine Public House. I don't know if that was ever shown in the movie.
I saw Public House, but I didn't see the other.
No wonder they just call it the pub.
The pub, yep. Yeah. It was actually purpose built for the film's production.
Okay.
On Achill Island in County Mayo on the west coast of Ireland. Since a planning permit had not been acquired, the pub had to be demolished when the film wrapped. So unfortunately, we cannot go visit it like the Hobbit holes in New Zealand.
But you mentioned an interesting thing, that the island is real, but they fictionalize the name. Inisherin does not exist.
Yes.
Which kind of plays into this takes place in an otherworldly setting kind of thing. Because it's a fictional place set in the real world. Why wouldn't you just use the name of the real island?
True. And also the fact that just different scenes are actually shot on different islands. Which might add to just the uniqueness of it.
I guess they wanted more variety in location. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to briefly talk about Siobhan, Padraic's sister, because she is such a both calming presence in the film, but also for me, I was the most worried for her because all this madness is going around her, and I thought for a time that I should be caught up in it. More concretely, and maybe she would have been one of the deaths portended by the Banshee, and even when she was on the boat, which man, they really linger on her getting on that boat and sailing away towards the mainland, which again, mind you, there's a civil war going on.
It was a scary moment.
Yeah, that was a little bit of terror on my part. I was like, oh my goodness, is she gonna be okay here?
And the Banshee is watching over her as she leaves.
The Banshee's watching over her. It's crazy because they did, for me at least, a fake out where she looks on the cliffs and sees somebody there, and I thought, oh, that's the Banshee. But no, it's her brother. But then you see off to the side, never focused on, the Banshee's also there as well.
You can tell because she has the catch pole. That's the only way you can tell, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's like, who else would it be, right?
So I don't know, but for me, that was the only thing that made it concrete. I was worried about it.
Yeah.
So the Banshee does mention, right, that 2 people were going to die. Is that correct?
Yeah, the 2 will die.
2 will die. She didn't say people.
A death shall come to Inisherin afore the month is out. Maybe even 2 deaths.
Well, that'd be sad.
We shall pray to the Lord. 'Tis neither you nor poor Siobhan will be either of them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, the donkey?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it ended up being the donkey, but we don't know. That's what creates the tension.
True.
Right, because at that point,
I thought that was gonna maybe leave it a little open ended to maybe she does die, because she, the Banshee looks at her one last time.
Right.
Maybe because they don't really talk about her after the letter.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because right after that, Padraic finds Jenny dead, his donkey dead.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'm thinking to myself, oh man, is Siobhan gonna die? Like maybe on the way, like an air cannon fire is gonna hit her or something. But I think she was there in part because that's the death of the relationship. of like the brother-sister relationship, because I don't get the sense that after Padraic's letter to her that they're going to really communicate much, or maybe it's going to be less and less and less over the years.
So what, you think Banshees are going to warn about death of friendships? And,
death of
relationships?
familial relationships. Yeah, I guess, that's
a stretch.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the whole reason all these events transpire is because one friend tells another friend, I don't like you anymore. Right? So it leads to this extreme things happening, right? So, I mean, that's a tough thing to deal with for somebody, right? Like, it doesn't have to be so extreme insofar as it's a death. It could be...
The Banshee's not getting much work nowadays on this island, so you know what? I think relationships can count too.
She's kind of looking at people. She looks at her watch and she's just tapping it like, all right, any day now, guy, come on.
She's gonna start moving on to other things like, it's the end of your shift. It's the end.
People are gonna realize who this woman is and what she's all about, and they're gonna be freaked out. And she's like, "Shift's over, go home, or else." Oh man!
So I also would like to add that the budget for this movie was $20 million. So small budget. Big success. It box office, it made $43.7 million. So,
and it's just coming out on streaming and home release now, so it's still gonna make more money.
So great, yeah, a great win for more indie filmmaking.
We ready for scores?
Let's do it.
I'm ready.
All right, Sean, you're up.
Me up. Me gives movie 9.5 out of 10.
Ooh.
This film is absolutely engrossing. The small details of the film really make it shine, from the acting, the accents, the dialogue. They all each showcase every character's personalities entirely. The pacing was excellent and never really felt time moving past. It's it's a deeply tragic film, but also very comedic too. There's many laugh out loud moments I had personally. It doesn't have a lot of hope in it to take away beyond Siobhan's journey and thankfully her escape from the island. But with that said, it was thoroughly engaging, and it's a complete tale that works as a beautiful character study. So for me, 9.5 out of 10.
Dope. I'm going 9 out of 10. A haunting and hilarious critique of stubbornness, analogous to both nations and donkey farmers. Will you, Dano?
I give it a 9 out of 10 as well. Such a beautiful movie. I definitely never thought I'd be giving such a high score to a movie with a log line such as that. Two friends who don't want to be friends anymore, basically. But yeah, an incredible character study with a beautiful soundtrack, beautiful setting, fantastic acting. And it's a great little fantastical slice of life in this little quaint yet dark and dreary Irish town.
But sometimes hopeful and happy.
But overall dull.
Yes.
It made me feel a very unique feeling as I was watching it, and I really liked that. So, yeah, 9 out of 10.
Fantastic.
Join us next week for The Great Silence, 1968, starring Jean-Louis Trintignant as Gordon, a.k.a. Silence. On an unforgiving, snow-swept frontier, a group of bloodthirsty bounty hunters, led by the vicious Loco, preys on a band of persecuted outlaws who have taken to the hills. As the price on each head is collected one by one, only a mute gunslinger named Silence stands between the innocent refugees and the greedy, corrupt bounty hunters. But in this harsh, brutal world, the lines between right and wrong aren't always clear, and good doesn't always triumph.
Ooh.
The film is free on the Redbox streaming service. Otherwise, you can rent it on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, or YouTube. Sean, where can they find us?
You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Ardent Cinema. And if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast app, give us a rating and a review. It goes a long way towards helping build the podcast. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, click like, hit subscribe, and hit that little tiny notify bell, so you're made aware when new episodes drop every week. Thank you very much for listening, guys. We really appreciate it. And with that, we'll bid you adieu.
Farewell.
Long live the new flesh.
Nixon.
He just doesn't want to be friends with me no more.
What is he, 12?